sound. Oh, good morning. Happy Sunday. It is Sunday. I am here and we are discussing things with you. Our New York bureau is closed this week because of wonderful weather. And so they have all gone out and played in the sand and been on holiday, as the Brits like to say. But I am here from the Atlanta office and we've got a voice from afar that will be sharpening my points today as Ziggy says what Ziggy will say. Any statements yet that you need to sharpen up on, Ziggy?
Not quite yet, sir, but good morning and go Gators. We are starting football season again soon.
Is it that time already?
It's that time of year. It's I can tell by the fact that I cannot get from one side of town to the other in under an hour.
Was there a game yesterday?
There was no game yesterday. So it was all the students trying to do something with their lives downtown.
Right. Got it. Like get new checking accounts and get a Discover credit card to start the debt mounding that is a student life in our modern world.
Yo ho, a student's life for me. I do not think that.
Are you calling all the students hoes? Like seriously?
I'm just saying.
I know.
I'm just saying, you know, all the black dresses. It's just not everybody can have black dresses. It's rush week, so we're seeing all the people out doing all the crazy things with all the crazy hats.
Yeah, I saw that on Snapchat, and that really kind of bugged me a little bit. So Snapchat has this promulgated whatever's going on, and they feel like everybody is between 15 and 28 in their target audience. So they just say, well, we're just going to treat everybody like they're in that concept. And so I got a pushed thing about Rush Week. So I had a bunch of, females that were screaming, oh my God, I got a bid from some random letter group. Oh,
ABC.
Yeah, Delta. No, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get too down deep into that. I will turn to a more serious note, yet depressing nonetheless, is gun control has been in the news heavily this week. And the reasons for that are just and righteous. There was a very sad and heart-weighting shooting that happened this past week where a news anchor was shot live on the air in a fairly small market, so it's not like a huge number of people that were watching it, and she was making a fairly non-consequential interview with some local, person to do some local event. So it wasn't like she was on the NBC Nightly News, but she was shot on the air live. Not only was she shot while the news broadcast was going on, but the individual that shot her made effectively a reverse selfie of what was going on, where you could see his arm and you could see where he was aiming. And this was definitely something that the world got a very accurate picture of. And I guess that brought the national conversation onto guns, what their point is, what their rationality is. And I just kind of wanted to speak for a few moments on my thoughts on gun control. Anything I've said wrong yet, Zig?
No, I'm on full on with you right now.
So to this point, gun control, there are a strong number of proponents stating that gun control is now of crucial importance and that we need to do something right now about gun control. And looking at a bit of the statistics, effectively, there is one gun for every 0.88 persons in the United States. So effectively, if you get a group of 100 people, there will be 88 owned guns in that group. With that amount of proliferation, with that amount of weapons in existence that we know about, right? That's things that can be tracked. That's things that can be discovered, right? And if there are that many guns in existence, is it reasonable to think that you can pass a few laws and within a year, 2 years, 5 years, have that number of guns brought down meaningfully to get an effect on the gun violence in our country. And my argument is that we are too far down that road to make any meaningful change without basically 2 generations of instilling of that law. So that law would take effectively 50 years to make a dent in the amount of guns in our collective possession as Americans.
Is there not some value in starting somewhere?
There is value in starting somewhere. But my argument is that is not the low-hanging fruit.
Okay, fair enough.
That is not the place that we need to attack, because I don't think that the gun ownership is the problem. I think that the concept around what our modern society sees of as guns and treats as guns, right, that is effectively the problem. There are those people that live in neighborhoods that feel like they need a gun for self-control, for self-protection, but they don't really know how to use it. You've got those people who are big gun proponents, and this is from somebody who yesterday went and shot sporting clays with a shotgun. So we went out and there were little orange discs that flew up and we shot them like birds. And there was another one that rolled across the ground. They call it a rabbit. Really, it was quite a bit of fun to go out there and do that. But everyone who was there on that premise had a full and complete working knowledge of gun safety. Effectively, my argument is, and I go into, professionally, I go into very dangerous situations with lots of dangerous things, with lots of noise and with possible spark hazards and heat hazards and all kinds of hazards. But people work in these environments safely every single day. And the reason is because they are taught and indoctrinated with an understanding of what the dangers are and how to work safely with them, right? And I feel like as a society, we have a possession, which is our cumulative gun ownership. And we need to teach our society to be a safe and understanding and rationally aware gun society, right? In the 1800s, everybody understood that guns were a part of life. Out in the 1800s, out in the West, you would see a gun at every single bar that you would walk into. 80% of the people who walked into that bar would have a gun on them because that's just the way you did things back then, right? And they didn't worry and, oh, well, is this guy in to shoot up the place? Yeah, there were events from time to time, but generally people had an understanding of what guns were and what safety was with those weapons because they grew up with them. They understood what happens and how those things work. My argument is that we should begin a national dialogue, not about gun control, but I'm going to tell you right here, right now, how we can prevent mass shootings.
Excellent. Let's hear it, Jeff.
I read an interesting article this past week that brought up a few thoughts for me, and I would like to pose a concept to you. In the 1800s as well, there was huge amounts of fire, but there was no societal dealing with that fire. It was the fire department's responsibility to fix the fire. Just like right now, there are guns and we are having societal issues by people utilizing those guns in inappropriate ways, right? Yeah. Back in the 1800s, the cities would burn because people would just wait around and not really have an escape plan and not really have a concept of what to do in a fire. And so they just would wait to be rescued and they would often die. But you know what? Now the amount of deaths from fires, from building fires, are hugely low for the amount of danger that there actually is, right? Because we've taken the appropriate precautions. We have set up building codes such that there are always escape routes in major, large buildings so that in a fire, somebody would be able to get out. Right? We have run fire drills in schools from the time that children are 3, 4, 5 years old. Right. We have published exit routes for these kinds of circumstances. My argument is that we should treat mass shootings the same way we treat fires. It sucks. It's a terrible thing. You don't want to be involved in it, but we should understand and recognize that it is a real danger in our modern world. So therefore, you go to large buildings and you don't just have fire evacuation routes, but you also have other evacuation routes that any given building, you've got exit doors all over the place so that people could get out in the event of a mass shooting. And if you have security concerns, you got one magic button that all the security people could push if there's an incident of that, and all of a sudden those lights come on, just like you sit into an airplane, and those lights on the ground come on and show you to the nearest exit. Because the most effective way that I've been able to read to effectively save yourself from a mass shooting is run. Just like the zombies are after you, you run. You GTFO, right? And if the building is not set up for you to easily be able to GTFO, then it's really hard to save lives. And our modern concept of schools is basically, in my opinion, modeled after prisons, where they control the entrances, they control the exits, and they make sure that they understand and move the flow the way they want it to move. But no care was made to really getting people out quickly and from any given place without having to go to common hallways, without having to go to some place that is centrally controlled. It was actually more designed around central control, which makes it a more prone place to have one person in control of all the movement of the individuals in that one building. So my argument is that we can control the amount and the damage from mass shootings by running drills and creating signage and treating it the same way that we do fire drills. Thoughts?
All right. One thing that I like this idea on its face, and I think there is definite value in learning more about guns, learning more about gun safety. Everyone should learn about gun safety. If we're going to have guns, everyone should learn about gun safety. Outrunning a gun seems a little crazy. The only thing that, like, I know that if given the circumstances, that if you were faced with a gun, your best chances, as you said, would be to run. Mm-hmm. The thing with a gun and a fire is that the gun has an intelligent person behind it. Mm-hmm. And that person can aim, whereas a fire doesn't have more than one agenda. It has one agenda, and you know how to avoid the fire because it has that one agenda. Mm-hmm. But the person with a gun, that's not as easy to predict.
Okay, so let's go to a circumstance here, and this is a horrible, terrible circumstance, but it exemplifies the worst of the situations. There's a school with that's having a congregation or an assembly in the main room, the main auditorium, if you will. So there's 250 children there, right? Right. And there's 250 children, and a shooter jumps out from the back of the stage, takes over the principal who's there in the front, and starts pointing the gun at all the children and starts telling them what to do. If we were in the wild and these were all gazelles, they would take off in all random matter of directions.
It's true.
Right? And if that's the case, yes, the shooter may be able to get 1, 2, 5 children, right? But in bulk, those children are going to scatter and take off. And generally, the confusion that would be caused by that would end up that almost all of them would get away.
But the thing is that a gun person has the intelligence enough to the person that has the gun has intelligence enough to have possibly researched the methods that these students would have been, because that's what's different between the fire drill and the gunman, is that the gunman has the brain to look and see, well, okay, these kids are told that they're going to scatter. Great. Mm-hmm. As they're scattering, I'm going to make sure there's bombs. As they're awful as it is, but like,
okay,
give a plan.
And yeah, I get it. Then it's warfare, and you've got somebody who's going to be calculating your expected move and then preparing for that expected move. And I get it. And you can't really do anything about that. All you can do is teach the people the best method that we have available.
I would agree
While
with that.
we have it available, you use the best method of saving the maximum number of lives available, right?
The other option is to give all those kids guns.
Do you think that that's a safe and rational method?
If we can teach them, sure. No, I mean, at a certain age, I think it is rational.
I believe in the ability of humans and Americans to be able to have and possess guns, but I don't think that that's a rational and a good way to do it, because statistically speaking, there's going to be enough of them that aren't, because if you give all of them guns, right, then there's going to statistically be enough that are unstable in their own mind that we haven't yet discovered, right? Because they're young, so you don't discover all these things immediately.
Sure.
And so there's going to be enough of them that are undiscovered, unstable, that some of those that are unstable are going to make poor choices with that gun. Even though they know the rules, they're going to make poor choices.
I agree.
And so then you've got that many more problems.
I agree with that. I'm not suggesting that the grade school children get guns, but let's just say that we had high schoolers. And
college. Let's go to college so that they can feel like they're adults. They're over 18.
All right. College. Every college kid has to have a gun. That seems to be very similar to Switzerland, where every citizen has to know how to use a gun because they're going to be in their standing army. Yep. It seems...
I've got an idea that I will let you finish and then I'm going to hit it with.
Excellent. So it seems that we've got an example out there of what can happen if we give everyone guns. And I don't know that Switzerland has a huge amount of gun issues, but it's an idea. Go ahead. Hit me with it.
Okay. So let's go to college again, and let's mix this with the GI Bill for a minute, right? So in college, let's say instead of us giving away student loans to people, we say if you do 3 years in the military after high school, we will pay for a government-sponsored $50,000 worth of schooling credit that we will give you to go to any college you want in the university system here in the United States, right? And as payment for that, you will be a school patrol officer, right? Which means you carry your gun, which you were trained to do in the military for 3 years. And anybody who has a check mark in their military training for that 3 years of service in our military gets to be one of these people who gets school paid for and then has as a duty to carry a gun around and make sure that it's safe.
You want me to bring the real life scientific what the fuck into this?
Yes. Sadly, yes.
So we got a Stanford prison experiment that had been done years ago where they gave authority to some individual over their counterparts, over their colleagues. And when you give authority like that to one individual and the others do not have the authority, that individual with authority more often than not takes advantage of that authority.
So the idea wasn't to give them authority over it, was just to have, if some shit hits the fan, we're going to ask you to be a good citizen and carry a firearm and be available for the protection of other citizens. If there's,
I agree, but once you give
a hold up, or if there is a guy that's like Virginia Tech, right, then we're asking you to use your military training appropriately, and we're going to give you the tools to do so.
I like this idea. I think it's not a bad idea if we get like, what do they call those? Mental tests, personality tests and whatnot into all of this to ensure that they're not that one-off Ted Kaczynski.
But you've got the 3 years while they're in the military to go through that kinds of training, to go through that kinds of evaluation.
Sure.
Right? And we're getting effectively, people who are generally smart and capable individuals who are want to go to college, getting their college paid for, which is very good for them, And in the payback to our country, we're getting people who are willing to serve in our military and our all volunteer military for a very reasonable cost to our society.
You know, I'm kind of inclined to like this idea of, if you want a fancy gun other than a shotgun that you need to shoot animals with, and then you have to show that you're shooting animals, you have to go to the military.
I'm not sure I like that concept, because really the reason that our society started having guns was to protect our citizenry from its own government.
Oh, that's right. Good point, Jeff. Good point.
So that was the original intent of the Second Amendment.
Yes,
was to protect the citizenry from its own government. And so at the point that you go, well, guns are only there to be able to go hunt. Well, not really. That's not what the original intent of the law was. And if you want to say we've so self-actualized as a society that you should never have to worry about your government, currently, let me move on to the next topic, which is Donald Trump is leading in the polls.
Whoa, what? Oh, wait, how did this relate? Because we have guns? Wait, what?
There is certainly a certain part of our society who would not like Donald Trump to be in responsibility for the direction of these United States.
Oh my God, I could see a John Wilkes Booth. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Tell me about it.
Right. So, but my point is that the government that Donald Trump may make is not the one that you want to go and be a part of. And, you know, it's this whole back and forth. And that's what our country was founded on, was the compromise of that back and forth of somebody you have to have somebody in power, but you want them to be weakened by the fact that they do not have absolute power. Right? And a guy like Donald Trump would work hard to have absolute power.
Yeah, but that's not serious. There's no way he can become president.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
Oh God, Jeff, what do you mean?
I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
Well, how? What?
I think you.
He's not even polling well. Come on.
What are you talking about? He's leading in Real Clear Politics.
What?
As of August 27th, 2015, he was not just close, but by 13% ahead of the next candidate in the Republican primary race. Number one is Donald Trump, who has effectively no political experience. Number two is Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson, who also has effectively no political experience. Then just below Carson is Bush, who's got all the political experience and is a political crony in every regard.
He's from a legacy, yes.
He's certainly a legacy from Connecticut that has lots of politically appealing traits. But he is 13.2% ahead of everyone else Trump is. 13.2. That is a bunch.
That's a bunch.
Bush has been dropping in the polls recently.
I haven't seen his face very often.
Well, no one has gotten over 20% of the poll results since they started back in October-ish of 2014 on these Real Clear Politics polls. No one has gotten over 20% support except Donald Trump.
Whoa, I did not hear that statistic before. Wow.
I'm here to bring you new knowledge. That's what it is. And Donald Trump is the only one who's gotten over that 20% benchmark. Not to say that that means he's going to win the general election, but that means that he has a very reasonable chance of being the nominee for the Republican Party. And then how strong is the Democratic candidates right now? Hillary Clinton's kind of imploding at the moment. And who's going to come in to fill? You don't know yet. I'm just saying, with the facts as they have currently been presented, it is not irrational to think, it is no longer irrational to think that Donald Trump could make an impact. And at very minimum, his ideas will certainly make an impact on this election.
Here's what I think. Well, first of all, I say this because I want to believe it. Second, part of that is I just saw somebody with a Trump bumper sticker this week. I wanted to ask them if they were serious. But from what you're saying, it looks like they were. This Trump is an interesting character to look at. Trump has a lot of money. He can win the media. He can win the people's in campaigning because he has a lot of money. But my question is, when somebody walks into that booth, will they have enough to back up their want to vote if they were whatever they're going to vote? Will they make the choice to vote for Trump because Trump has a good platform? Or will they make a choice to vote for Trump because they just don't want to vote for the Democrat?
Or don't want to vote for the traditional politician? Right.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. A lot of what the resonance that Trump is getting is that he is not a traditional politician. He's telling people that normal politicians kiss the butt of. He's telling them, screw you. I don't need your sympathy. I don't need your appreciation. And most of the politicians are hamstrung based on money. And that a few people who give money and a few groups that give large amounts of money have made undue influence on our political system, both on the Democratic and Republican side. I think that is just the nature of our current political system. There's a few people who are outside of that. The Bernie Sanders generally would not do that as much, but Hillary Clinton absolutely would. During quite a bit of Barack Obama's run, that tends to happen. You see outsider candidates come in, make a bump in the polls because they don't sound like all the rest of the candidates, and then the people who have money get in their head. And then you hear them start to change what it is that they're saying to sound just like all the other politicians. Because they're told, well, all these people are liking you now, and we like you too. All we need is just a little bit of this, and then we're going to give you a lot more so that you can go on to the next step.
But they don't say that once you switch to this, a little bit of this, you lose about 10% of that.
That's right. They don't say you're going to lose those people who liked you just because you didn't sound like everybody else, because we're going to ask you to sound like everybody else.
Indeed.
And Trump currently does not sound like anybody else.
You know who else doesn't sound like anybody else?
Deez
Nuts.
Oh, Deez Nuts. Let's speak on Deez Nuts.
Deez Nuts. So this 15-year-old decided he was, based on a song, going to run for president under the name Deez Nuts. And so my question was, how the hell can a 15-year-old run for president? And because the presidential age is 35, right? So I had to take a look at I had to go back to my civics class, return to civics, and read what this says. And it says, must be a native-born citizen. All right, check. He was that. I assume. I'm going to assume. Must be at least 35 years old by the time you are sworn into office.
Yes.
And must have lived in the United States for at least 14 years. So he, by the skin of his teeth, because he's 15, he's lived in the United States for 14 years. And he may not be 35 by the time he's sworn into office, but you have to be sworn into office for that to happen. So I think
that only matters when you actually when you actually win the election.
Right.
So you can run at any time as long as you've got the 14 years, you get the number of signatures, you get all that other stuff they require.
Right. And that was I was like, oh, that's tricky. Nice reading. All right. Yeah. So Deez Nuts is another one that's going to have a bloop, and then we'll see. He may have some other backing by the singers and just odd people out there.
Yeah, and so the question is how awesome would that be for American democracy to elect a 15-year-old who could not actually take office?
That would be crazy.
Because that would be the middle finger to all of those political parties going, well, we are the only guys you can get you somebody that's electable.
Exactly.
You've got to do what we say to do. That's my pirate party vote right there. Because then you have to have a re-election to re-elect somebody else, and the whole election is thrown on its head.
Yeah, then we start to really see, oh God, things are not working out the way we wanted. You have to take a look at that system. Yeah, and I'd like to see a Trump versus Deez Nuts 15-year-old debate, mostly because I think Trump is a bully, which brings me to the next topic of adult bullying. You were talking at the
segue.
You were talking at the jump of the show that there was a recent on-air shooting. So there were two journalists that were interviewing a lady, and this former colleague, also a journalist, former journalist colleague, came up and ran up to them and shot the lady, journalist, shot the videographer, and then attempted to shoot the person who was being interviewed. So this sounds awful. It sounds terrible. And what I've been reading in the news is that this is awful and terrible, which it is. But what I haven't been reading in the news, and which I had to do some hunting for, was the backstory. Well, you know, why? What makes somebody go haywire, especially an educated person? No offense to anyone, but well, Ted Kaczynski was also educated. Never mind, I take it all back. All the educated people are also crazy. So
not all of them, but some of them.
Yeah. So what pushes somebody to that extent? Okay, so this gentleman, his name's what? Lester? I think it's Lester. Either his first name's Lester or his last name's Lester. Don't you have to look that kind of stuff up, guys. Don't quote us on that. So he was a former journalist, news reporter in Tallahassee, and he had filed quite a few grievances against the Tallahassee Bureau, journal, wherever he was at, saying that claiming race issues. And okay, so we've got he's in Tallahassee, which is in Florida, for anyone that does not know.
So did he become a Florida man at that point?
Sure. No, he didn't actually do any shooting. He actually just got let go on that one. So that was better. He just left. But in Florida, you know, the further north that you go, the more southern it gets. That is
Vester Flanagan.
Thank you. There you go. Vester. Sorry, sir. So he got moved from that place, moved to the Virginia, where in Virginia, he also stated that there was issues with people having race issues with him, and he also he was gay. So there was also possible issues of people being biased against him in other ways.
There were reported issues of people being biased against him because he was gay and because he was black.
Correct. Now, some of these issues, so you go, oh, okay, maybe he's one of those people that's like squeaky wheels, and you know what is that real like? What could the person have said? What he claims that the videographer did, and he wrote this in his write-up, right? Is that the videographer used to leave watermelons out of his office, and they had a discussion about watermelons before. So this guy who has been moved from Tallahassee, he'd been claiming that people were being biased, which, you know, there is a thing called adult bullying, in my opinion, and people do go too far. And I think if this proved to be true, it's not a reason to excuse what he did, but it is an idea, as a glimpse into the mind of why he might have done what he did. He may have felt that he was at the end of his rope in his career, the end of his rope in his life. He wasn't being respected as a person, and as a result, instead of reaching out and doing it a more civilized way, he lashed out in the wrong way, which, if we can get some training on that, for gun control would be great. What to do if you do feel this deep anger and frustration and like you can't go on. But we don't talk about that for some reason. We just talk about a lot of that he was disturbed. So we leave it all on him, and there's nothing to be said about the two journalists that he shot over whether or not they instigated anything. Now, no one's instigating being shot in the middle 2 years later on a field. I understand that. But some people hold grudges. And mental health in this country is not very well monitored and valued and dealt with. Yeah. So of all these things, I wanted to say something about adult bullying. It's got to stop. Stop, Trump. If you go against Deez Nuts, I'm gonna be pissed if you talk this little 15-year-old down. But more than likely, the 15-year-old is going to talk around you, so that's all right. And just generally, let's all get along.
Yep. There is not a whole lot of respect and grace in public discourse anymore.
That's true. And you know, it takes humanity for respect and grace in the public discourse, which when you get a whole group of people together and they start rioting and whatnot, there is a piece of humanity that you have to understand why these people might be rioting. But we may have another solution. We may have taken out the humanity in this whole situation by arming our drones.
What? We've been arming our drones? So drones have been in the news recently quite a bit. There's a guy that shot down his neighbor's drone because it flew over his property line and blah, blah, blah. And lots of people are very pissed off about what is effectively like a little bitty model aircraft, right? So it's hard for me to feel like drone is some sort of real danger to our life. But we are getting some opportunities here to do more dangerous and more harsh things with drones. Two different police venues, if you will. There was I believe it was in Arizona, where a local police force put tasers on top of drones. And then I was reading something this morning about another police organization that put rubber bullets, a rubber bullet gun or whatnot, on a drone. And the idea being that you fly a drone over some sort of political or some sort of public unrest, and then you don't have to put officers in danger. And so they're always looking for better ways to prevent the whole riot gear concept. And so that's what they say that they're trying to do. But really, this to me goes back to what I have an issue with on the red light cameras, right? You can't automate police actions. You can't automate the witnessing of infringed laws.
You can't get into my moral
hazard is enormous.
Yeah.
Right. So if you do that, then you have no rational check on any laws that are written. Somebody writes a law, it goes directly to the drones, it's then being enforced fully and completely, and people's lives are ruined quickly and without any regard for circumstance, right? And I feel like in a society of humans, we can't fall down that slippery slope.
What about a society full of chimpanzees?
A society full of chimpanzees. Is that Frank Headington from Johns Creek, Georgia, that's saying good morning?
The illustrious.
All right. Well, I can barely hear you, so move closer to the mic.
But a gaggle of chimpanzees, they might behave a little bit better.
Maybe.
Yes, sir. So drones are armed. You said something about them having rubber bullets. I'm not as aware of rubber bullets. Do they not kill?
Rubber bullets, the idea is that it bruises the bejesus out of you and nothing else.
Okay, so they don't enter, they don't penetrate. Okay.
That's the idea of rubber bullets.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that they never break the skin, but they're certainly not made to penetrate this. They're not intending to penetrate the skin and intending to cause internal damage. Because if you didn't know, almost exclusively, when bullets kill people, it's by bleeding them out. Almost exclusively. It's not because, they hit you in a vital organ and then that vital organ stops working and you die from that. No, what happens is that they hit something inside that makes lots of internal bleeding. You lose enough blood that you die. Just that simple.
Oh, it's the blood loss that kills you.
It's the blood loss that kills you, which is the reason that 22, which is a very small caliber shot, is just as deadly as 45 when you look at it over the long term. Problem is that if you get shot with a 22, you got 3, 4, 5 hours before you die.
Oh.
Right? So you can get to the hospital, and then the hospital can patch you up so that you don't die.
Right.
If you get hit with a 45, that time frame goes a little bit shorter.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a very good point. So guns don't kill people. The bullets don't kill. Your lack of keeping your blood kills.
That's right. Guns don't even kill people. It's the bleeding out that kills people.
The bleeding out that kills people.
As always, do your research on the internet and don't listen.
Right, because you shouldn't believe anything that we say here unless it either corroborates something you already know or you have researched it yourself to verify its truth and complete validity.
Oh man, when I research though, I go down those Google paths and I get into places I shouldn't get into, and I need something to give me guidance on things I should not be Googling, because goddamn.
That's right. And this week we've got something that you should not Google. This is a new segment that I think I'm going to try and bring back more often. Things you shouldn't Google.
Right? Two girls in a cup.
Right. 2 girls, 1 cup previously spoken. Here's one thing that you should not Google. Tan mom, which is kind of a internet meme name for some individual. Tan mom cited by TMZ topless.
You know I'm gonna have to go look this up now.
I'm telling you shouldn't. I'm telling you shouldn't.
You're doing me a solid.
You're a free and rational individual that can do whatever you see fit, but I am telling you that you shouldn't. And that's all I can tell you.
When Jeff says I shouldn't, though, I really want to.
I know. Frank, do you have a random country this week?
Nope.
Okay, the country of nope.
Country of nope.
I literally just walked in the door to try to get on the podcast. I didn't realize you guys would be live.
Oh, that was nice. I appreciate that.
Oh, we appreciate you showing up.
Yes,
Any
sir.
way that you show up is better than not showing up.
All right, I can give you a random country.
Okay, you got a random country?
Okay. Hold on. I almost had a random country, and then my Google went out, so never mind.
Okay. And when Google goes out, there is no better thing. I've been watching, on my DVR has been House of Cards, and I've been trying to catch up on House of Cards. And let me just tell you that the episode that had Pussy Riot in it was great fun, except for the song at the end of the episode was a little too riotous, right? Lots of noise.
Yeah, I liked it.
Folks.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a good episode.
It was, and correct me if I'm wrong. I wish Thom was here. They actually had been in real life censored.
Yes. There was a big to-do with Pussy Riot being chastised by the Russian government, and they had all kinds of back and forths, and they did concerts where it was a rogue concert where they just stopped a street corner, pulled out their instruments, and made a bunch of ruckus noise, and then were arrested and taken away and all this kind of stuff. And that's kind of where the impetus for that episode came from.
Right. Excellent. Yeah. Good history. Dropping some history. Nice.
That's right. Boop. Mic drop.
That's right.
So that brings up all of the topics that I had to discuss. Ziggy, do you have any other topics that you wanted to discuss?
I have topics every time, all the time, but what I don't have is time this time. So I will come back to you next week with them.
That's excellent. Frank, do you have any topics that you'd like to bring up?
I just don't want to show up on Ashley Madison.
That is correct. It is just a hack that we will discuss next week because there will be more details that I see will be coming out about that Ashley Madison hack. Ooh. And until we discuss that next week, you don't have to think like me.
You don't have to think like me.
I don't think.
But we ask that you, our intelligent and capable audience, do think.
We love you, people.